Good morning. Welcome to the February 21st, 2025 meeting of the Montgomery County House Delegation. Today, we do have a few changes to our agenda. First of all, Senator Van Hollen was supposed to join us this morning, but because of the many votes that went all night, I think until 4:30 this morning in the Senate, we're rescheduling with the senator so that he has a chance to get a little rest here this morning. So we'll have him back on for a future Friday delegation meeting. We'll also be joined in a bit by Representative April McLean-Delaney, who will be giving us an update. But we're going to start with just a couple of bills that should be pretty short and quick, hopefully, until before we turn to the Congresswoman. So colleagues, we're going to start with the first bill on our agenda, MCPG 107-25. This was the bill offered by Delegate Moon on WSSC service development charge exemptions. As you recall, we actually already voted this bill out of our delegation. Because it's a bi-county bill, it went over to the Prince George's County delegation. And they did have an amendment on the bill, so we do need to take another vote. Their amendment is very straightforward. It is just adding identical reporting requirements that we had amended into the bill before we sent it over to them, adding those same reporting requirements for their own county. Is there a motion on these amendments?
I move the amendments, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Second.
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 Okay, moved by Delegate Foley, seconded by Delegate Kaufman. And I'll note that because this was so straightforward, we did bypass the local committee with these, and they are coming to the full delegation, so there's not a committee recommendation on these. Any discussion or question on these amendments? No? Okay. All those in favor of the amendments added by the Prince George's County delegation, please say aye or raise your hand. And a reminder to please come on camera if you are not.
Aye.
Okay, holding this for a moment because it always takes a moment for people to get on camera. Anyone opposed? Okay, those amendments passed unanimously. Jen, I forgot to ask earlier, do we need to revote the bill or are we good just voting on the amendments?
I think we're good just on this amendment.
Good deal. Okay, so that one is done again, and I see that our guest is with us. So we will pause our taking up of bills and turn now to our special guest, Congresswoman April McLean-Delaney. We are so glad to have you with us this morning and to have a chance to check in with you. Happy to turn it over to you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm so sorry. I'm in the car on my way to actually Hagerstown and Frederick. It's a district work week, as you know, but thank you for having me on. I just want to say thank you all for the good work that you're doing. I know that I've been tracking a lot of what the delegation has been working on, in Annapolis and, even in some of the priorities, on a county basis. But, I just want to say it's been an incredible couple of weeks, obviously a very dynamic time. In the 6th district, I represent over 35,000 federal workers, NIST, parts of NIH, National Institute of Cancer, our fire academy. And it's been a really difficult time because obviously there's been a lot of chaos and confusion. A lot of our nonprofits are really worried about funding. And so I've really been working in concert, with our whole federal delegation, really focused on a lot of outreach. I did a teletown hall with 6,500 people last week, to kind of answer questions and really get against this dynamic landscape. I've been really focused on my constituents and on Montgomery County and, Frederick and Allegheny, Garrett and Washington, but really listening and trying to figure out how to best, respond. With respect to a lot of the priorities I saw you all are working on, including a lot of infrastructure priorities and transportation priorities, I've been very focused as well on trying to uplift those. Although on a federal basis, it has just been so unhinged and like out of bounds, out of normality, that I have been very focused on just obviously keeping a day-to-day cadence with our district and our federal office. Last, I want to just say that I really appreciate you all. So many of you have reached out to me and have been just in, really close connections and kind of lifting up, your priorities and offering support. And I just want to say that, I will be there. I am, it seems like, we keep talking about a year.
Congresswoman, you froze.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. But anyway, I would love if you have some questions or, I also would just love to get some input from you all. I think I think Senator Van Hollen is supposed to jump on as well. But I just wanted to say, I thank you all. I'm here. My priorities, I did join the Agricultural Committee and the Committee on Science, Space and Technology. Obviously, NIST is in the district. And, a lot of our research institutions within Maryland are very key. And so I have been very focused on also making sure that we keep on driving, research, innovation, and, really, looking at ways that we can continue to fight for the priorities of our district. But happy to take a few questions if you want. The dialogue, and I'm sorry that I could not be at home, but given the fact that today is one of my district days, and I have a very big district, I'm going to be in my mobile office most of the day. So, but always feel free to email me and reach out to me as well. But if anyone wants to, ask me anything, here I am.
Great. We appreciate that. And actually, I mentioned at the top of the call that Senator Van Hollen's going to reschedule because of the Senate voting all night
The
into the hours of the
Votorama, the
morning. Yes.
Votorama. Oh my Lord. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty incredible. Yeah, I will just say one last thing. I spent my whole life, I was a communications attorney, worked in satellite, and then, spent a bulk of my career in nonprofit Common Sense Media with digital, protecting kids online and our privacy, and then obviously working in the Biden administration at NTIA. But, a lot of this is a massive data breach. I mean, a massive data breach, and a grab for our personal information, our employment information, health, work records. It is something that is completely out of bounds and I think lawless and illegal. I'm working on a bill that I'm trying to get bipartisan support for to, really, push back against the release of this type of personal information. I think it is, and particularly if it is, shared with companies or with contractors and those not vetted within our government. People, when they work for the government, or even if you are, giving your social security or your health information to an agency, you presume that that will be kept in confidence and not shared. And I think it is a breach of trust and a fiduciary duty. And I think that we need to very strongly stand back. And I think against all these freezes and all of what is happening, it is underneath it all a massive way to disassemble, but also to, data is power. And that is so important, particularly when you cross-lace it with AI and then a massive infrastructure across the platforms. So it is, to me, a terrifying thing and one of my big priorities. Not something that is Montgomery County specific, but is, it touches us all and is completely a national problem. So while I hate to, I'm not one who panics, and I think we're going to be fine, but I think that we are going to need to be very strong and vigilant and to stand up. And this is completely outside of all bounds or anything that I've ever experienced or any of us have. But I do know as Democrats, we have to give a more concerted, focused message, or just as public elected officials. I mean, Republican or Democrat, as public elected officials, we need to stand up for our pillars of our government, for trust in our government, and for what we do as elected officials. So anyway, on that, I will happy to take a couple questions.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Delegate Kaufman has his hand up.
Yes, very briefly, Madam Chair. Very nice to see you, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
Admittedly, there aren't a lot of farms in my district in southern Montgomery County in District 18. But what
Yep.
we do have is a lot of people on SNAP and WIC in my district.
Yep.
And I am very concerned about Chairman G.T. Thompson's plan to really cut back on SNAP.
Mhm.
And you know, there's so many people who need it. I was just talking to somebody yesterday or today that needed it. And so do we have your commitment that you will stand up against the chairman when it comes to food insecurity for SNAP and WIC individuals?
Yes, and in fact, it's really something you
Because
say that because
the farm bill is being debated. I forgot to give my colleagues the context.
yes, I'm on the ag committee. And, I am the most junior of all of the members because obviously I'm a freshman member, last one to speak always because, bottom rung on the totem pole. But, it's a travesty. Yesterday I met with the Frederick County Farm Bureau, and today I'm going to meet. This is a big issue because, I think I'm just looking at this, the Farm Bill has been really since 2018 has been kind of going through this extension after extension after extension. And it is at a critical point. Farmers are up in arms. And yet they say that they're going to try and cut $230 billion in funding cuts. I do not know where this will come from because that's both conservation efforts, that's subsidies, and most importantly, you're right, is SNAP funding. I am so committed to standing up for SNAP funding and nutrition. There's 38% food insecurity in the Allegheny schools. That means 1 in 3 kids are going to school hungry. And thank God we're giving them free lunch through Governor Moore's and, through a lot of our state funding for lunches. But it is unacceptable that we have hungry families and hungry children. So I'm going to be very vigilant and standing up for SNAP. The problem is the Republicans have to realize that, this is not just an urban issue. There are many rural communities and rural red communities across the country. They're starting to wake up to the fact that SNAP funding is jeopardized and how many people depend on it. So you have my commitment, and it is a huge issue.
Thank you, Delegate Kaufman. Colleagues, any other questions? Delegate Corman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You might have sort of covered this, Congresswoman, but how do you like it?
It's really funny you say that. Um, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Pelosi, came up to me the other day, and she put her hand on me and she said, "Hello, dear. Are you having fun?" And I said, I wouldn't jump to that adjective, Speaker, but am I enjoying it? It's really important work. It is, I wouldn't say there's enjoyment right now. It's more important work, and I'm feeling incredible pressure on my heart. I have to tell you all the time. I mean, I'm carrying on my heart those 35,000 federal workers. I'm carrying on my heart SNAP funding. I am so unbelievably, I'm the most junior member of Congress. Literally, I'm number 435 because by the luck of the draw, they take your number, your name out of a hat almost and say, who is the most junior member of the freshman class? And I got the lucky number. So I am the most junior member within this number 435. Having said that, I came to Washington when I was 22. And I know how I just am so unbelievably set back about how our levers are being pushed in new ways. So am I enjoying it? I'm trying. The weight of the seat is weighing on me, and you step up to the plate, and every day you just work as hard as you can. And that's all I can say at this point because it's a lot. But I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna work as hard as I can because that's all I could do at this point. Is that? I hope that's the only answer I can give you right now. It's not. I think it's hard to and frankly, I think a little bit of mercy has to be, or grace has to be afforded me because I sit in a purple seat. I sit in a purple seat, and no matter what vote I take, no matter what vote I take, I get a swipe from either side. And so, I say common sense, common ground. I'm just going to kind of give it the best prism I can for this district. And it's, as you know, there have been people who have been disappointed about one vote or another. And the most important part for me, I feel, is like really doing the best I can to uplift everyone within the district. So thank you.
Thank you.
And please come in and see me either in our Frederick or our DC offices, because I'd love to have a more one-on-one with a lot of you.
Great. And I think we'll take one last brief question if we can from Delegate Chi.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Congresswoman. I am so proud to see you here. Thank you for stepping up to do the important work. I want to speak both as a representative of Montgomery County, which has been disproportionately affected by the recent layoffs and chaos in DC, but also as a representative of the very large Asian American community in Montgomery and Frederick counties that are extra anxious because most of them are relatively new to politics and the political dynamics. And now they are seeing firsthand the consequences of this election and learning about all these rights and where they can go for resources and all of that. So I think beyond the rhetoric, and we have heard from the Democratic side, our leaders, including our congressional delegation, a lot of outrage and rhetoric, denunciation, which all rightfully so. We all agree, but we need some concrete, practical resources and step-by-step guidance to usher our community through this difficult process. I have sent out multiple links to our chat groups about where people can go. I hope at this point of a difficult time, we can focus on the practical to-do list to help our communities. Okay, and you represent a purple district, so you could be a very good spokesperson on that. People are looking for solutions beyond the rhetoric. Thank you very much.
Yep. So I did a teletown hall. It was more focused on a lot of the federal worker situation and federal freezes, but there were some definitely we received a lot of input afterwards about all of the mass deportations, all of the fear. You're right. And we did put out a couple of links. I think I through franking and through email, I think I emailed almost 300,000 emails across the district with links about, legal resources, what to do if you feel like you've been, wrongly targeted. I am meeting with our delegation, our federal delegation. We meet every couple of weeks. It's convened by every 2 or 3 weeks. It's convened by Senator Van Hollen. It is a scary time. And I think that I thank you all because you're on the ground even closer than I am and are able to really within your communities, try and piece together how we move forward. I would welcome any input, and I'm happy to speak to any groups that you would like me to do so. But on a state basis, I think that we are really going to have to figure out how Maryland, internally in Maryland, how we're dealing with it. But these policies of ICE are they're difficult to predict. And the last thing that I'm concerned about, and I see this frankly, and I get this question a lot, is the most important thing is that the courts hold our federal, our state, our circuit courts, but obviously our Supreme Court holds as that last branch, those last guardrails against some of these, I think, lawless and unconstitutional actions. And what if they do hold and then they're not respected? The court decisions are not respected. Then what is that next rail that we reach? And that is where I'm going, which is kind of not the best place to be. But with respect to your communities, I think it's just giving as much practical advice as you can. And yeah, I think also pushing back within the courts and flooding the courts back is really an important thing as well in terms of it can't just be democracy forward. It has to be all of us at all levels, particularly those with individual standing, going into the court system. And in that way, it will push back and give time to respond.
Thank you. And
That's
actually,
not the answer you wanted, but unfortunately, the pragmatic one that I find.
and we're going to wrap up here. And actually, I'm going to turn to Delegate Lopez. She has not a question, but wanted to have a comment, and I'm going to let her have the last word here.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate you allowing me the thank you close. Congressman Delaney, I'm just happy to see you here. I know this is your first time speaking to us as a delegation in one of these meetings, but I know it certainly won't be the last. And you've
I'll see you next week in Annapolis, hopefully. If it works within my schedule, I'm going to try and get there for your event on, is it Tuesday, Thursday? I'm trying to remember.
Sure. And
Yeah.
we'll send you more information about what we're doing. I know you've been a great partner with our reproductive care work. And I also have to just publicly give you praise for hiring such amazing staff. They are a joy to work with and have been so helpful in trying to address the needs of our federal workers that are in our constituencies. So I just want to give you some public praise for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Really
Congresswoman. We're very appreciative of your service and for you being here today. And we'll let you get back to your busy day. Thank you.
Thanks, you all. Really appreciate it. Take care. God bless.
Okay, colleagues, turning back to our agenda, before we move to the next agenda item, I just want to clarify the vote that we took on MCPG 107-25, that in fact, we were not just voting on the Prince George's County amendment, but the bill as amended that included that amendment as well as our amendment. So we don't need to revote anything, but just for the record, we were voting on the entire bill that included their amendment. So unless anybody wants to revisit that, not seeing anyone seeking to be recognized, we're going to move on with our agenda. So we have our long-awaited committee report from the Education, Elections, and Housing Committee. Thank you, Chair Ziegler, and your committee members and the bill sponsors for being patient since we did not have time to get to this set of bills last week. So I'll turn it over to you, Chair Ziegler, for the first bill.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So the first bill essentially codifies something that the Montgomery County School Board is doing already. As amended, it requires the school board to close schools to students for Yom Kippur, Diwali, Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, the Lunar New Year, Rosh Hashanah, and then as amended, also Juneteenth. So we voted the bill out favorable with amendments. I move the bill as amended.
So actually, I think we do still have to vote on the
Do
amendments.
we have to vote on them?
in
Okay.
full delegation. And Chair Ziegler, can you remind me, so because I know there was a second amendment adopted in your committee, were those technically two separate amendments with the addition of Juneteenth, or was that rolled into one amendment?
Juneteenth is a separate
A
amendment.
separate amendment. Okay, so if you don't mind moving the original amendments that just narrowed the bill so that the schools were, it's just the students who have out and not the staff, we can take that one up first.
Okay, great. So move the First Amendment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is that
Okay,
right?
so moved by Chair Ziegler, seconded by Delegate Kaufman. So colleagues, questions or discussion on this First Amendment that was adopted by the committee on MC 6-25. And again, please come on camera if you wish to be recorded as voting here in a moment. Okay, Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question about the procedure here. So if I heard Delegate Ziegler correctly, she said that they're already doing this. And so why then do we have to put it in state law? I don't, it seemed, I don't know. I mean, maybe you can explain that to me. I'm not familiar.
Yeah, Chair Ziegler or the bill sponsor, Delegate Wu, if you'd like to answer.
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. So the reason for that is just codify the work for the school, what they're doing. And in this way, each year the school try to commission a calendar committee. And in general, there's a huge debate there. For the holiday to get off, for the holiday to get on. I think by helping school system codify their practice, that actually can really help them to operate in terms of the holiday arrangement there.
And Delegate Wu, if I'll just follow up on that. If I'm remembering correctly, I think in the list of holidays that are outlined in the bill, I think the school system said that they were already accommodating all but one of them. Is that right? So maybe
Yeah,
this actually
Diwali.
does have an
They
impact.
didn't accommodate Diwali this year, but some years they accommodate Diwali. So that's the reason I said instead like coming back revisit this every year, help them to codify that. Actually, I think it's a help for them.
Thank you. And thank you, Delegate Foley, for that question. Colleagues, other discussion on this amendment? Okay, we're going to get ready to vote, so please come on camera. Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that amendment is adopted unanimously. Chair Ziegler, the second amendment, please.
So we also have an amendment to add Juneteenth to the list of holidays. Move the amendment.
Second,
Okay, moved by Chair Ziegler, seconded by Delegate Wu. Discussion or questions on this amendment? Yes, Delegate Chi.
I'm a little confused. Isn't Juneteenth already a federal holiday?
so there's a
Are the schools
concern
not
from
closed?
Can I reply to that?
Yes, you may.
So
Sorry.
there's a concern from some our local delegates. The federal government may do away with that. So we just want to make sure that it will not happen.
Yes, that it's a proactive change, does not have an impact now, but should federal law change, it would preserve it as a holiday for our students. Great question, other conversation. Okay, all those in favor of this amendment, please say aye or raise your hand. Anyone opposed?
Aye. I mean, I just got late.
I got you, Delegate Kaufman. I'll always clarify if it's not clear. Okay, that amendment is adopted unanimously. Is there a motion on the bill as amended?
Move favorable.
Is there a
second.
Okay, moved by Delegate Kaufman, seconded by Delegate Wu. Discussion on the bill as amended. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, MC 6-25 comes out favorable unanimously. Chair Ziegler, I'll turn to you for the second bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the second bill from Delegates Charkoudian and Vogel changes the compensation for the school board. And we also voted that out favorable with an amendment. There is an amendment we need to vote on that deals with the student member of the board. It establishes that a student member shall receive 35% of the annual salary of an elected member of the board as either a scholarship or a stipend at the discretion of the student member. Move the amendment.
Second.
Thank you. So the amendment's been moved by Chair Ziegler, seconded by Delegate Wilkins. Questions or discussion on this amendment? Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
Is this consistent with how the SMOB is treated currently, or is this a departure from the current SMOB policy?
Can I turn to Delegate Charkoudian to answer
Yes,
that?
please.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a departure from current policy, and it is sort of verbatim the recommendation of the Compensation Commission.
And who generated the Compensation Commission report?
Gosh, I don't have that in front of me, but it's the commission that was created a number of years ago, and they've done now 2 reports where they review the work of the board, make recommendations to the general public, to us specifically, because we're the ones who, I guess, make the decisions. But I can pull it up and find the makeup of that body if that would be helpful.
And I think we'll Delegate Charkoudian pulls that up. I mean, my recollection is these are just Montgomery County residents who were appointed by the county executive, I believe, to serve on this commission, but Delegate Charkoudian might have a more specific answer for us in a moment. And I'm sorry for cutting you off. Yes, go ahead, Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
No. So currently, does the SMOB get any financial compensation?
They get a scholarship.
For college, I think.
Okay.
Yes, it's capped at
Scholarship,
the, I think what in-state tuition is at University of Maryland College Park.
Mhm.
Okay, so the departure would be, we would actually be giving them the choice of a scholarship or just getting paid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, recognizing Delegate Wu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think I just talk about a general idea, not just about amendment itself, the bill as well. First, I want to thank you for the bill sponsors, especially, and Delegate Chakodian bring up this topic. There have been so many discussions going on this issue, like even Montgomery County and other counties. At the same time, I don't agree with adding a $124 salary, $1,000 salary, and change it to be a full-time job. I think there are several reasons for that. Right now, I'm not aware any other school board are full-time across the country. If there are, probably very few. And I believe school board should be really a part-time job. Otherwise, the board will micromanage the superintendent. I saw too often that board members want to do the job, which should fall into the superintendent. This will create a big problem for the superintendent. Unfortunately, the tenure for superintendent across the whole country is around 5 to 6 years. That means every 4 or 5 years, you need to have new superintendent. Just searching for new superintendent will be easy, very difficult as well. If we change it to be a full-time job, we really need to change the school system operation structurally. Otherwise, I don't think it will work. Even in the corporate world, no board member is full-time for a company. Especially when we have elected board members for school board, I feel that the tension between school board and the superintendent will be really high. If the salary is too low, I would propose like $60,000 a reasonable
Delegate
number.
Wu? Sorry to
Yes.
interrupt. So right now we're just on the amendment for the student member of the board compensation.
Yes, I'll
And
talk
I very
about
much
that, yes.
appreciate your comments. And I was going to say we will come back to the bill, the full bill. I think we have 2 amendments to
So-
take up on the student member and then the timeline. And then we can have that much broader conversation about salary level,
Sure.
regular
Can I just
members.
one for the
Yes, go
student
ahead.
board member? For student board member, I believe either dramatically increase their compensation will lead to a very toxic election in the future. I saw that in my first hand right now. For SMOB, it's more to serve the student population and have a student voice on the school board. Once the money part is really high, it will change the election dramatically. So I'm not supporting this, unfortunately.
Yeah, but
Okay, so on this particular amendment, recognizing next Delegate Miracle North. And sorry, you're muted.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to make sure I understand the logistics of this, because if this bill were to pass with these changes in salary, 29,000 in November 2025, 67,000 December 2025, and then 134 in 2026. So if the student board member were elected, they can get 35% of which salary, like when they get sworn in. I'm just trying to understand the numbers wise, is the change in the Board of Education salary going to change how much money the student board member gets?
The short answer is yes. If the
Okay.
bill sponsor would like to give a fuller
Yeah.
answer, she's
Thank
welcome to.
Thank you.
Delegate Charkoudian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I'm jumping back and forth between the report. First, I wanted to answer the question about the compensation committee. The House Bill 150 from 2018 established a Board of Education Compensation Commission to study salaries of board members, submit report with recommendations regarding appropriate compensation every 4 years. The members of the commission are nominated by the county executive and appointed by the Montgomery County Council. So these individuals were council and executive. The names are Kayon Graham, Rachel Watanabe Tate, Gretchen Blankenship, Jocelyn Lawrence, Nicole McDonald. I don't have more information about them, but that's who they are and that's how they came about. And their 124-page report goes through the details of how they came to all of the recommendations, including, I think the one we're talking about now is just this amendment to the bill, to the SMOB member. But when we get to talking about other aspects of the bill, there is a report that I think I had shared or put in the record, and I can
Yes, that has been shared with the full delegation.
send anyone. Okay. So I'll just say one other thing. Right now, just to be clear, the amendment is amending from a SMOB member receiving the same compensation as the rest of the board to this lower compensation amount. So that's just on a technical point. But I do want to say one other thing, which is SMOB members work very hard. And I think the idea of offering compensation in addition to, or as an option instead of simply the scholarship is that there's a recognition that not all students can afford to not have a part-time job when they're in high school. And so there's many students in our community that have to work to bring in income to supplement family income for themselves, whatever it might be. And so to only have a scholarship suggests that the students who would be able to run would be those who don't need to earn income, have families that don't need them to earn income, and students who are definitely going to go to college. And I think that's a smaller set of people than the people that we want to make this position available to. And so that's the idea in general of moving away from where we have been on the SMOB's compensation.
Thank you. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Delegate Charkoudian addressed some of my questions about this. So the question is, when does, and maybe somebody else asked this before. I have a couple questions. One is, when does the student member payment, stipend, or scholarship start? When the student member's term starts? Or can the student change their mind and say, well, okay, for year one, I want a stipend. For year two, I want a scholarship? I'm a little concerned that the student gets a lot of discretion over this, that the student member gets a lot of discretion over this. So I'm not exactly sure how it can work. And can the student split? Can the student say, I want 10% as a scholarship and 90% as a stipend? And I just put it out there. I do have a little bit of a problem with the stipend, but I also take what Delegate Charkoudian said about the scholarship, that not everyone goes to college and not every student can afford to not have a job. And so my final question, and I know I'm throwing a lot out there, is it a scholarship just to college, or could it be a scholarship to some other post high school program?
Thank you for those questions. And just to clarify, the student member of the board only serves for a single year. And my reading of the bill is it's either or, but Delegate Charkoudian, you're welcome to weigh in further.
Yeah, no, I was going to clarify that it's 1 year, and I think it's either or. And I think that if that's a real concern, I'm sure we can clarify that further if we want to make sure that it's only one, or that the decision has to be made by a certain time.
Okay.
And what about the scholarship? From what your comments were, it's only for college.
Some kind of higher education. I suspect if it were a technical school, it probably could be used for that as well. Again, if you wanted clarification on that point, I'm sure we could make that.
Okay, thanks.
And I do think that's a fair point. The bill right now is pretty vague. So, I mean, I would actually read it as it could be used for any kind of further education, but right, we could clarify further. Delegate Spiegel.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to the sponsor for your work on this. I still have concerns in following up on Delegate Miraku North's comment or question a few moments ago, asking sort of how this would apply when the full $124,000 salary is triggered under the calendar of the bill. That means that the SMOB will be getting in the ballpark of $43,500 as 35% of that. And to me, that just feels like too much for a high school student under the circumstances. I know the SMOBs work hard. I take well the point that not every high school student who wants to serve in this position is going to go on to higher ed, but $43,500, which could be taken as a salary by a high school student from our school system, it feels too much to me.
Thank you,
Agreed.
Delegate Speaker. Delegate Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate Charkoudian, for all the work you've put into this. I'm certainly supportive of the spirit of the bill, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around some of the logistics because I've never been on a budget committee and I have no frame of reference for some of how some of this works. So I have three very quick questions. One is, how exactly are the Board of Ed members paid? Are they paid through MCPS, which comes from also the county budget? And if that's the case, are we the final authority on their salary at the state level, or is there some other check there? My other question is, as I understand the bill as it's drafted in the current posture, is just for compensation. It has nothing to do with like oversight or no increase of staff that's given to them. It's strictly the comps portion, correct? And then three, looking at the kind of the history of these type of bills, it always feels like the holdup is on the Senate side. Has there been any effort to talk to folks in the Senate to come to some type of consensus on this? I know that's a lot, but hopefully they're all very quick yes or no answers.
Madam
Yes,
Chair, do you want me to jump in? Okay. Sorry, I've already forgotten your first one, but I did have an answer to it. What was your first question?
Where does the money exactly come from?
Yeah,
Where's that flow?
county. It is county, it's the county budget, and it is the so school board budget, school budget, MCPS budget, and we are the ones who make the determination in state law. Although I suppose theoretically, another path we could take is to, I don't know if we can constitutionally, but maybe one could change the law so it's made at a different level. I'm not sure. But right now we set it, and it's not an authorizing to which the county council would then, could go up to. It's not that kind of a thing. It is the amount that we set in the budget. And your second question was?
That this is just about compensation. This
That's
isn't
correct. It
any
doesn't,
other,
yeah.
it's
Mhm.
limited in that, right? And then the third question was, the holdup's always been in the Senate for these types of things.
Mhm.
The devil is in the details. Has there been an effort to work with our folks across the hall and the other chamber to kind of come to some type of consensus?
I've had a few conversations, but I don't think that we have come to consensus. No, we haven't. There's no consensus at this point. I don't think there's consensus necessarily on, this bill came out of the subcommittee with a unanimous vote. But I think just based on this conversation that we're having, there's not consensus on the House side either. So that's the conversation that we're having. But no, we don't have consensus with the Senate at this point.
And I will say, in full transparency, I think Delegate Lopez, to your point about the Senate, that continues to be a real concern. Recognizing Delegate Wallach.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Delegate, for bringing the bill. I wanted to just echo my support for the idea of paying the student member and also the scholarship, and having that opportunity to pick and choose. I think the work and what that looks like is going to change very much, and people who are going to college now may opt out. And so really kind of letting them choose that direction, I think it's great. To Delegate Spiegel's earlier point about 43,000, whatever that ends up being too much. I tend to agree, and my reasoning is that the student member, is a high schooler without the life and work experience of presumably the other school board members. I'm wondering if the 1/3% was arrived at thinking about that, or was it come to because of the amount of time they spent? I would be much more comfortable about their hourly pay rate being somewhat close to what, frankly, we pay our entry-level staff here hourly, and sort of trying to figure out what that more accurate compensation looks like. So I love the choice. I want to have them paid. I think just figuring out what that number looks like is sort of where I would be on this. And I appreciate again all your work on this.
And Delegate Wallach, I'm trying to remember what was exactly in the compensation committee report. I don't know if they went into exact details on how they landed on the 35%, but I think they were recognizing that the student member does work a lot of hours, but typically does work less hours than many of the full-time members. But I don't know if they spelled out exactly why the recommendation was 35%.
One last piece on that is that, on the higher ed space, Delegate Foley brought the bill about compensating and union, letting people unionize grad students and so forth. So I think to me, this reads very much in line with that and compensating people for their work. But again, I think it's just a matter of what accurately a 17-year-old is bringing to the table and what that compensation really needs to be.
Thank you. Delegate Wilkins.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I wanted to chime in on the amendment. While I don't support the bill, which we'll get into when we are on the bill, I do think that this amendment is one of equity. And we have SMOBs that are in all different types of situations. We have a SMOB actually that's interning for the Ways and Means Committee, a former Montgomery County SMOB. And I'm really proud that Montgomery County has elected many diverse mobs. And I think that having the opportunity to offset costs, we know the costs of being in elected office, whether it is as a SMOB or as a legislator. And I think having the opportunity to have a salary or stipend is really important, and the opportunity to make that choice. So I do support the amendment, although I will not be supporting the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Kaiser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wanted to make a few points. I stand with my colleagues on thinking that the amount is too high. And I say that as someone who, before most of you were members of this delegation, I was the one always leading the charge on the SMOB voting rights bill. So very much a big supporter of the SMOBs. I think the amount of money is too high. I appreciate it being scholarship or money for all the reasons that were already stated. There was a question that somebody asked about, well, what if they want something one year and something the next? In this century, 3 SMOBs have served 2 years. So I do think if any clarification needs to be made, someone should be able to make a different decision if they are elected 2 different years to the position. So I don't know if that needs an amendment at another time, but I don't suspect we're finishing up with this bill today.
Yes, thank you to that point, Delegate Kaiser. I don't suspect that either. Delegate Moon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm honestly very torn on every aspect of this bill. And I appreciate Delegate Charkoudian's work and the subcommittee's work, because I actually agree with the policy direction that everybody is going in. But I guess my only comment and hesitation here, and so I just don't know how I'll vote on any aspect of this yet. I'm just going to decide on the fly probably, is that, as Delegate Kaiser notes, I remember the old battles on this issue, and we did all of this work, had this whole conversation about what the compensation should be. We voted out a bill, and we had a whole debate about SMOB compensation. And I seem to recall that at a much lower compensation amount and at a much less flexible SMOB compensation scheme, the Senate still balked at what we were doing. And I seem to recall some of the issues were, again, whether you agree it should be full-time or part-time. I prefer full-time for most of the officials, but I seem to recall there was some question about jumping the school board pay above state officials' pay as one limiting factor here. And then the SMOB question seemed to hang people up last time we did this when we were talking about cash payments. And so I guess my only comment/question is whether we have reason to believe this current Senate lineup, which I think is not too different from the last one, might think differently about even more ambitious approach this year.
Thank you, Delegate Moon. Anyone else on the amendment to the student member of the board compensation? And colleagues, I'll say at this point, and I think given the conversation we've had so far, I think I would like to proceed with voting on this amendment. And I will just note that the amendment before us, if it is, people should vote however they want. I also want to make that clear as chair, that if we vote this down, however, the language reverts back to what is in the bill currently, which is ultimately that the student member of the board would get the same rate of compensation as a full member. After this amendment, I do know that we have another amendment coming from the bill sponsor that pushes out the time frame for when the compensation increases would start under the bill. And then my intention would be that we're going to open it up for the fuller conversation about the bill and these other issues that have been raised and we've kind of been holding off on. Delegate Foley.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So that's our only option. Like, we don't get, like, those of us who weren't on the committee, we don't get like a middle ground. I mean, can't we send this back to committee for more work if we vote it down? And come back with a different amendment? Or can we like special order the bill or special order the amendment or something? I mean,
procedurally, members of the delegation are always welcome to offer, other paths forward. I would say, I think procedurally for today, since we're not going to vote, just given the conversation we've had so far, and I think how much discussion is still ahead of us, like I'm saying, we're not voting on the full bill today. So that definitely would give people the opportunity to work between this week and next week on any further amendments that they would like to see to the bill on any aspect of the bill. But special ordering a bill or tabling a bill is, of course, allowable under our rules at any time. I think both just require a simple majority of the delegation to do. But right now, we do have a motion pending before the delegation. So unless there's a subsequent, like a secondary amendment to this amendment, I think we need to deal with this first. Okay.
Move favorable on the amendment.
And actually, I think we already have the motion second on this.
It was so long
particular-
ago, so yeah.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Delegate Kaufman. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone else asking to be recognized. Or Delegate Wims, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, just could you restate what the motion
What the
is?
amendment? Yes. Okay, so we have a favorable motion on the amendment that was adopted by the committee to change the compensation for the student member of the board to 35% of the salary of an elected member, so meaning the rest of the school board, and that can either be awarded as a scholarship or a stipend. It's the student's choice. That's the amendment that's before us. Delegate Charkoudian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would just kind of reiterate that as we're thinking about the bill, I know that there's people who have expressed that they support the direction, but not the full amount for the whole board. So right now, the full amount for the rest of the board is 125, and so 35% of that is 43. But if you end up with the full amount for the whole board being 60, then 35% is 22 or whatever it is. So, so you're talking about a percentage, and that's just worth keeping in mind as people are voting on this. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a sense, do we need to do a roll call for this bill? And I do see there's some other hands up.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay, so just giving a heads up to Ralph and Jen, we will be doing a roll call for this one, recognizing Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
Thank you. So I guess I'm in the position of having all kinds of concerns and separating out whether there's a scholarship or whether there's a direct financial stipend. And at the 35% of 125 or even the 35% of 75 or whatever it may or may not end up being, I'm to the point, and I think Delegate Foley said it, I'm just uncomfortable with all of this right now. I am not comfortable voting on this amendment. I'm not comfortable not voting on this amendment because of what Delegate Charkoudian said. So I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but it's like I almost want to offer my own amendment, but it's on the fly, so I haven't figured out exactly what my own amendment would be. And I'm not comfortable voting for or against this because of the kind of catch-22 that we're in. So for the very first time, I think I'm just not going to vote on this, which I don't like to not do. So I guess I'm going to turn my camera off and just not vote because I don't like any of what's being presented at the moment. But because of the time and because it's a bit of a catch-22, I don't know how to fix it. So I will just kind of leave it there and turn my camera off.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Frazier Hidalgo. And actually, before I recognize the next person in the queue, I do just want to clarify something I said before, that a motion to special order the bill would be in order right now. We don't actually have to vote on this amendment before taking up a motion like
Well,
that.
then I would propose that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
Special order bill.
Second. So there's been a motion to special order the amendment and the bill by Delegate Frazier Hidalgo, seconded by Delegate Kaiser.
For how long?
I'm,
For
s-
a
I'm,
week?
s- I'm
Forever?
sorry, point of order. I'm sorry. I wanted to clarify. We're special ordering the bill to discuss it again in the future, or are we
Yes, at the
referring that
next
to?
delegation meeting next Friday.
Okay.
Thank you from our former parliamentarian. Okay, so I think at this point then the debate should be on the special order motion. So if the folks, I see people nodding, so recognizing Delegate Wallach first.
Sorry, I am not sure about what I just have a question since we're special ordering it. Again, I believe, we should be paying this mob having the choice. I would really love to just understand how many hours a SMOB works, and then what that compensation would look like at a fair hourly rate. From my perspective, it's, having a salary for a Board of Ed makes sense. And I would just want to understand how many hours a SMOB is working and what a fair compensation for somebody of that experience looks like.
Okay, thank you for raising those questions. And I think since our debate is on the special order motion at this point, we'll make sure that the bill sponsor follows up with you about whatever information she can on that point after this meeting. Recognizing Delegate Solomon.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just wanted to echo Delegate Frazier Hidalgo's comments and the comments of Delegate Charkoudian, because actually the in-state cost of attendance for College Park, potentially depending on the amount of aid that a student would be eligible for, is over $30,000. So that's another concern I have with this amendment, is depending on what we ultimately do with the compensation, we could be reducing what a current SMOB would be eligible for if they were to enroll in an in-state school, depending on the aid that they would be eligible for. So I do agree that a special order to sort of rethink the entire scheme of this, I think, is better and puts us in a less awkward position. So appreciate the motion, and we'll be voting in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Miracle North.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On special order, I just want to understand procedurally, we had a motion on the amendment and then it became a motion on special order. So I'm just trying to understand procedurally
So
where we
next
are.
week- Yes, so the motion that's before us is on the special order, and if we approve that motion, the next week at our delegation meeting, we will start back up with debate on this amendment, is my understanding.
Okay, got it.
That is my intent.
Can
Okay,
I
thank
jump
you.
in just for a
Yes,
second?
please, Jen.
If you're
Yes, Ms. Wong.
interested, because this delegation follows the House rules, House Rule 83 provides for the precedence of motions, and a motion to postpone to a certain day is ahead of a motion to amend. So that's
Okay,
why
thank
we're
you.
doing this.
Thank you very much. I learned
Thank
something
you,
new today.
Jen.
And so with that question, is it possible, this is just kind of a shot in the dark, is it possible to have someone from the commission talk to us? Because we're asking a lot of questions based upon this report. Frankly, let's be honest, it's a long report. I don't know who's read every single page. I know I haven't. So if there's a way to get like a brief synopsis from someone at the commission, that would be nice before as we consider the special order, or maybe on the day of the special order. So I'm just throwing it out there.
And I think that's reasonable, Ralph, if we can ask maybe the chair of the compensation committee to be here to answer questions. I don't think we'll do a briefing because that's typically not how we handle voting sessions, but certainly to have someone here to answer questions for the next meeting would be appropriate.
Absolutely, I'll get it.
Thank you. Delegate Collison. And I'm sorry, you're muted.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. As a member of the subcommittee, I would ask that if folks have ideas and who are not on the subcommittee, that they would like to bring them to please. And I'm going to ask that you send ideas, information, thoughts, things that we should be thinking about to Chair Ziegler, and so that she can share them with us so that we can be prepared for to facilitate the discussion. So I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Kaufman.
Yes. Yes, Madam Chair. And I'm going to be voting against the special order because this is something that Delegate Charkoudian introduced in the fall. And so our colleagues had ample time to express concerns to Delegate Charkoudian. And also I'm the vice chair of the Education, Elections and Housing Committee, and no one expressed concerns to me. So, if it dies, it dies. But I think, I'm going to be voting against the special order because even last week we didn't get to it. So people have had ample time to raise concerns and come up with alternative ideas.
Thank you. Ralph, did you have something procedurally or administratively you wanted to raise?
I had just something to add because I foresee perhaps other amendments coming for this. I just want to reiterate to all members of the delegation, if you have amendments for any delegation bill, please submit that request directly to me. Do not go to the amendment office or the drafting office or anywhere else.
Yes, and actually I was going to say that when we got to the end of the debate here was that, yes, colleagues, amendments, again, thoughts are welcome. Please work in advance. We don't like to take amendments on the fly. So I'm teeing that up for our meeting for next week. Please coordinate with Ralph and of course with Chair Ziegler about anything you are thinking about. Recognizing Delegate Kaiser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to be voting in favor of the special order. I think it's well within our procedures to have this delay when clearly not only do we have disagreement across our delegation, we have so many unanswered questions that the whole point of unanswered questions, the chair and vice chair of the Education Committee couldn't answer for us. So we need those questions answered. The other point I want to make, and somebody already said it, and I just want to touch on it. I think Delegate Charkoudian said, we might not like 35% of 120,000, but if we're raising their salary only by some other modest amount, maybe we would be. And so it's very hard to vote on that 35% amendment without some expectation of where we might land on the larger figure. And obviously, we're not sure how it compares now to the in-state tuition. So again, one more unanswered question. I look forward to this debate next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Wilkins.
Just for what it's worth, we're already on this motion and I see the one that I want to make doesn't take precedence, so we are where we are. But I think it would have been better to recommit the bill back to the committee because I think that this format of all of us with various opinions, questions, concerns, I think being able to have the committee discuss this and take into consideration all of the feedback as opposed to all of us here trying to weigh in and share our concerns. And the committee coming back to us with a work product that might better reflect where this body is probably would have been better. I'm concerned we're going to come back with a special order and be in a similar place playing out this conversation again in a week. So I just did want to mention that, but we do have this motion before us. And I do want to say to the chair, Delegate Ziegler, and to Delegate Charkoudian, we do appreciate all of the thoughtfulness and the hard work of the both of you and the entire committee on this. And I'm looking forward to us figuring out a path forward. So thank you.
Okay, I think that is the end of the hands. So we're going to vote on the motion to special order the bill till next week. Folks, do we need a roll call on the special order? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone saying yes. So we're going to do this by voice vote. All those in favor of special ordering the bill until next week so that we will take it back up then, please raise your hand or say aye.
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 Okay, anyone opposed to the special order?
I am.
So Delegate Kaufman, Delegate Ziegler. Am I missing anybody? Okay, that motion carries.
Oh,
and-
Crutchfield, I thought had her hand up.
Yeah.
Oh, my apologies. And Delegate Crutchfield was also opposed. Okay, so colleagues, that bill is special ordered till next week. Thank you all again for the robust conversation. Again, my door is always open. Please, let's one-on-one conversations on this are welcome. And if you have formal thoughts for amendments, please go to Ralph to have those drafted. Okay, that ends the committee report for the Education, Elections, and Housing Committee for this week. We do have two other bills on our agenda. I'm going to turn to Chair Foley for MC 18-25. And again, colleagues, this was a bill that our delegation already passed, but we have a subsequent amendment to take up. Chair Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, just for colleagues' information, to, what we're talking about here. So this was a bill that would allow the same entity to hold, to increase their liquor license from 1 to 2, but it limited off-premises sales to, for the second license, to only private label products, I'm sorry. And what the amendment does.
You froze, Delegate Foley.
Yeah, she's
Madam
still.
Chair, I can jump in if we need to.
Yes, I'm going to recognize the bill sponsor.
Madam Chair,
Oh,
Madam Chair,
okay.
I move.
I'm sorry, Chair
Madam-
Foley, you were frozen for most of your remarks. We couldn't hear you.
Oh, I was? Oh,
Yes.
sorry. All right, let me start. So, this bill, just for your information, that we passed, allows for a second liquor license to an entity that already has a primary license, but limited the sale of off-premises sales to only private label products manufactured by the holder. And what the amendment does is it removes that restriction so that now the holder can sell, and that doesn't have to be their private label product. The committee considered this bill, considered this amendment, passed it unanimously, and so therefore, Madam Chair, I move the amendment.
Second.
Okay, so this additional amendment has been moved by Chair Foley, seconded by Vice Chair Wims. Questions or discussion on this amendment? Okay, not seeing anybody, although I'm seeing some faces that look like they're pondering. So I'm just giving an extra moment here. All right, well then we're gonna vote on this amendment.
I'm so sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
May I? I'm so sorry. Thank
Yes,
you.
Delegate Shetty. Vice Chair
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're just procedurally, we're voting on an amendment and then we'll have opportunity to debate the full bill.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, great. I will have comments on that. Thank you.
Sounds good. Anyone else on the amendment? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment on MC 18-25, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So that amendment is adopted unanimously. Is there a motion on the bill as amended?
Move the bill as amended, Madam Chair.
And second.
Motion made by Delegate Foley, seconded by Delegate Wims. I will turn to Delegate Shetty for discussion on the bill as amended.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And I want to take a moment to thank the bill sponsor for all of her hard work on this and for fielding many, many questions. And I'm
sorry, Delegate Shetty, are you on the Vogel bill? Because I heard you say she.
I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about Charkoudian's bill. I'm going to hold comment. I'm all ahead of the game. I apologize.
You're ahead of the game.
I heard a word that triggered my thought. My apologies. No
No
coffee
worries.
yet. Thank you.
Yes, we're on our other alcohol bill in our delegation. Okay, other discussion on MC 18-25, Delegate Vogel's bill. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the bill as amended, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that comes back out again unanimously. Thank you, Delegate Foley, Chair Foley, and your committee for taking that bill back up in committee this week. All right, turning now to our last bill on the agenda, which is another repeat, MC 21-25, which is Delegate Charkoudian's bill, also on alcoholic beverage licenses. So colleagues, at our meeting last week, we had voted I think it was unanimously to move the bill out of delegation with the amendment that was adopted by the committee with a subsequent amendment, clarifying amendment, so that the bill could be heard in the standing committee on Monday, and it has had its bill hearing. I will say the reason I decided to put this bill back on the agenda was I remember from that conversation last week, there were multiple people who raised the issue of that they were, okay with letting the bill move ahead so it could have its hearing, because that was kind of its last shot to have a hearing in a standing committee this session, but it didn't seem to me like we were done with the discussion on the bill. So I wanted to just bring this back up and to allow for some more time here for conversation on MC 21-25. And I don't mean to put her on the spot, but if Vice Chair Shetty would like to speak now, since she was trying earlier, I will
I was
recognize
trying
her.
so hard earlier, Madam Chair. Thank you. I appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. Apologies for earlier. Yeah, so I want to take a moment to again thank in proper time this time both the chair and the full committee that has considered this bill, as well as the sponsor who has fielded a number of questions. I am totally on board for the intent of the bill. I think it's always a good thing when we're analyzing things through like a public health lens, because so much of the work that we do really does impact our public health broadly, and we don't often think about that. And so I think those are good things that we're trying to do through this bill. Where my concern lies with this broader effort and with the language that we would be voting on this bill is that I'm concerned more from like a legal perspective that the legislative intent of the bill may not actually be fully captured in the language that we're putting through. And as a result, it puts a huge amount of discretion on an administrative body to potentially deny licenses, which could then end up in costly litigation where the intent of the work that we're doing here will be analyzed, and it will be very difficult for a court to then assess what was actually the goal. We haven't really outlined what specific metrics should be used to determine whether something has a public health impact. And that is fairly vague. And so I'm more concerned about sort of the legal structure and the potential for litigation down the road with like a lack of clarity in how what we're actually trying to have them analyze. So I wanted to put my thoughts out there because I really support what the bill is trying to do. But I'm just really concerned about the lack of clarity here and what it could mean down the road. Thank you for allowing me to express my thoughts at the right time this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Shetty. Recognizing the bill sponsor, Delegate Charkoudian.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Vice Chair Shetty, for those thoughts. And I'll just say I started right there with you when I started working on this in November. And the original language of the bill, although it was a little clunky, it was essentially directing the board to review public health literature, review literature, establish regulations to find a way that they would be considering density on the public health. So it was kind of much more comprehensive in that sense. And I actually got significant pushback from the board for sort of that approach. And my engagement with the board, while they still don't like this current language, this kind of came from my engagement with them, which was to say that this was much more consistent with the other direction from the legislature to the board. And so if you look at what this gets amended to, the other sort of verbiage of the direction from the legislature to the board is this. Before deciding whether to approve an application, the board shall consider the public need and desire for the license. So if you hear that, that's a pretty broad concept. The number and location of existing license holders, broad. The potential effect on existing license holders of the license for which the application is made. Again, very broad. And if what you see is we're directing them to consider the business impact, and this is sort of where my argument was. We're considering the business impact on the other holders, but we're not having them consider sort of the density impact on public health and public safety. And then other factors, I could keep going. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But I think the idea was when this language was in the conversation between myself and the board, the idea was that this broad language was much more consistent with the broadness of the language that that is everything else that they consider. And so that sort of is why I agreed to this language instead of a much more comprehensive, like develop a regulations, review, literature, and so on. So that is how we ended up here. I was disappointed that after a lot of negotiation with the board, they ultimately decided against this. But this did come directly out of those negotiations.
Thank you. I want to ask a follow-up question. I'm looking at the letter that's dated February 5th from the Board of License Commissioners and Delegate Charcuti, and maybe you can clarify. But I think this letter was sent the day before the Economic Development Committee met, because they met and voted this bill out the next day on February 6th. So in their letter, when they speak to concerns about the inclusion of additional criteria that is not well defined, are they speaking specifically to the amendment that the committee ultimately adopted, or are those other concerns?
I think I think so. So what happened was originally they didn't like the original language I had. I spent a lot of time in negotiation. Someone representing them proposed something along these lines. I said I thought it could meet the needs. They ultimately voted on it and decided they didn't like it. And that came out the day before, after we had been working in this direction for a while. Now, I just want to sort of be transparent about my negotiation with them and where this came from, but also honor the fact that the board ultimately votes, and I wasn't speaking to the entire board. I was speaking to one person representing them when I negotiated this. So I do think that comment is related to what it is we ultimately voted on.
Thank you. Recognizing Chair Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we got that letter from the alcohol board after a discussion with the alcohol board. So the alcohol board came to our meeting. The person, I think it was the chair, explained what the process was. Delegate Charcuti did a little more work. I think it was a different amendment, or maybe it was the same amendment. I don't remember exactly, but then we got the letter saying that that the alcohol board did not support. But I just want to remind the delegation that the alcohol board is not the county government. And we then had subsequent conversations, extensive conversations. Both Delegate Charcuti and the committee had conversations with the county council, and the county executives, representatives. And ultimately, in the end, the county government said that they supported the bill as we amended it. So I just want to make sure that history was clear. I also wanted to point out, Madam Chair, that Amy Saman is on this call, and she may be able to answer more questions about this.
Thank you. And Delegate Chetty, I'm going to jump in with one more question. Oh, and you've lowered your hand. And actually, I'm going to put, if maybe Melanie Wanger can clarify. So I have in my notes that the county executive and the county council did both agree to conditionally support the bill, subject to further amendments that were clarifying about what those criteria specifically should be. But if you or someone else from your team could clarify what the county executive and county council's positions were.
Yeah, so I think this is subtle. I mean, because there was a lot of moving parts on this and a lot of changes of language, but I think broadly, and I have not been back to either with this exact language, but I think, they always supported the intent of the law or the piece of legislation. And I do believe that the way it's amended would be in the spirit of what they support.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Vice Chair Shetty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I'm doing this from my phone, so I pushed the wrong button earlier. Thank you for allowing me to speak again. And thank you again, Delegate Charcuti and Chair Foley, for all of the extensive work you've done. I think, and I do think that it's really helpful to have the feedback of the board on the direction they'd like to go, as well as the feedback from the county. I will say, though, again, that from my perspective, my concern remains, in part because while the board's feedback is extremely important, the board's sort of feedback seems to suggest that they want broader discretion to be able to potentially make a determination using general versus the specific guidelines that you had initially intended. And that to me, again, raises the same concerns of the potential for litigation down the road when it is very unclear on what grounds the board is making this like potential denial of another license. And so again, 100% on board for the intent. I again still remain very concerned about the potential for litigation. And I think like a lawyer, so that's always going to be top of mind. So I'm still probably going to be a no on the bill as a result, even though I'm 100% on board with the intent. So thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Shelley. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just a comment on what this discussion, and then I have a question about procedure. So, so here's what we were presented with on this bill. There was a lot of back and forth. The county, both the county council and the county executive, initially wanted more detail. The liquor board came in and said, we want less detail. So they wanted more specifics. The alcohol board said, we want more discretion, less specifics. We kind of moved, although not totally, as Delegate Shetty pointed out, but we moved more toward the position of the county government because the county government is really who we respond to. So that's how it came about. But Delegate, and then my question on procedure is, Delegate Shetty just said she'll be voting no on the bill. Does that mean, Madam Chair, that we're re-voting the bill?
Potentially. I mean, I will say this bill and several other bills this session, we as a delegation decided to advance to the standing committees so that the bills could be heard. But there definitely was discussion on this bill and those bills as well, that there would be another bite at the apple because people did not feel that they, had fully gotten a chance to weigh in on the bill, but we recognize the time constraints. And as a reminder, this bill was under a time constraint. Last Friday literally was the last day that our delegation could take a position on the bill for the bill to be heard in the standing committee. Otherwise, the bill was going to be dead for the session because we would have missed the standing committee's deadline. Does that answer your procedural question, Delegate Foley?
Not really. So what would be the procedure then?
I
consider the bill or what?
Sorry, I've been trying to message with our analyst, Jen, and maybe I'll just ask her to answer my question audibly because I haven't read her response yet. It would be a vote to reconsider, or would we do something else?
Is anything new being offered is really the question.
That's right.
No new amendments.
You voted it as it was. I'm thinking of how the floor would work if it were like you have a set of amendments. If you wanted to take something off or make some change in some way, it seems like there would be something to vote on. But right now, if you're just like you can't do it, there's not a vote to reconsider it. I'm trying to think of the terminology, and I apologize. I'm a little tired at this point in session. But there is the concept of an impermissible reconsideration of the vote by like it passed. So with a little more research, I might have a more clear answer on what we'd be doing here. But if we're not, you passed it as it was, and then it's like you're asking to take another shot at this because we're not sure. So I would honestly, I think to give you a more clear and concise answer, I'd probably need a little more time because this is procedurally a little out of the ordinary. That's how I'll put it.
And my apologies, I neglected to give you a heads up about these forthcoming questions. So my recollection is that there is some mechanism under our rules where if it's the subsequent week, as long as it was someone who had voted for the motion, that we could take it back up. And I'll say otherwise, I think it is exceptionally troubling. I think there were at least 2, if not 3 bills that we voted out of this delegation on the premise that we were going to get another bite at the apple. Because I will say at this point, like I have concerns about this bill, and I do not at all question the intentions of the bill sponsor. I think she is such a pure-hearted person and only is doing things for good, but I'm very concerned about what the implications might be, say, on Rockville Pike in my district. So maybe we'll pause on the procedural question. I see that Ms. Saman from the county has her hand up. If she can answer a question, I will recognize her. Otherwise, we generally, if it is, I guess, related to maybe to what Delegate Foley was just asking, be happy to recognize you.
Good morning, everybody. I was actually gonna speak to a few questions ago, just on
That'd be
the
fine.
board position, clarifying the board position. The board never supported any amendments. I just want to make that clear. Their position from the bill to the amendments going forward was that they were happy to accept the bill sponsor's request for them to do annual training around public health and density from a public health professional, and that was indeed part of the letter. But that their position is much more in line with Delegate Shetty's position in that they had concerns whether it was to look at public health information or even have broader language that it could result in, because they are a quasi-judicial entity, it could result in some convoluted issues and result in additional appeals to the circuit court. And that is reflected in the letter that went to the committee, and then it's also reflected in their letter that went to the Economic Matters Committee as well. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Recognizing Delegate Kaufman.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm going to recommend that we special order the bill till next week, because I personally ethically am not comfortable revoting when Jen isn't 100% sure that we can, and she thinks that there's a possibility that the horse may have left the barn. So let's give her a week to do research. I don't want to vote one way or another if we may not be allowed to once the horse has left the barn.
And
Madam Chair, I'm not sure a special order motion is in order here.
It definitely is. I was about to ask Delegate Kaufman, is that actually a motion, or you're making a suggestion?
No, that's a motion.
But I would like to ask Jennifer if it definitely is in order, because we can just hold the discussion, I guess. Normally we special order something to make a change.
Jen, just confirming, a special order motion can be offered at any time and takes precedence over, well, there is no other motion on the table.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I did just I got a hold of someone who's really more of our procedural, our parliamentary procedure expert. And she says she thinks her opinion was that you could take it back up again without any proposed changes.
I would still like to have a broader look.
Which, if it were back before, then you could vote to special order to reconsider other things too.
Madam Chair, I move to reconsider the vote, and then I move to special order the reconsideration.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to digest. Delegate Corman, you said you moved to reconsider the vote and then...
And request a special order.
And then, okay, Delegate Kaufman, are you withdrawing your motion?
I don't understand. I have great affection for my colleague from District 16, but I don't understand what he's trying to do. So if he could explain what he wants to do, then I'm happy to withdraw it.
Absolutely. I'm trying, Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm trying to put the matter correctly before us. So we have a motion on the actual bill, signed to consider on the bill, but I understand there's a lot more discussion that has to happen. So I'm also asking that we special order that motion until the appropriate time next week.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to
withdraw.
Yeah, I'm happy to defer to a lawyer, and I'll withdraw my motion.
I second both motions.
Okay, so the motion to reconsider the bill and also to special order the bill until our delegation meeting next Friday has been made by Delegate Corman, seconded by Delegate Stewart. Discussion on, I guess, the special order motion at this point. No, okay. All those in favor of the special order motion till next week, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Was those oppositions or lingering? Okay. Opposed is Delegate Foley. Anyone else opposed on the special order motion? Now, special order motion carries. Okay. Thank you, colleagues. Again, another week of where we are being put through our paces on procedural issues. Appreciate the great conversation this week. And as always, all of our assistants from our fabulous DLS analyst, Jen Young. I think we should give her a round because she's working so hard for us this session. We're probably going to keep that up. Let me turn to committee chairs. Does anyone have an announcement at this point about an upcoming meeting? Delegate Ziegler, Chair Ziegler, my apologies.
Yes, we will be meeting on this coming Monday at 11 o'clock via Zoom. The agenda will be coming out very soon, I promise.
Thank you. Any other committee chairs? And I will just say at this point, the bills that we have remaining, outside of the two that we special ordered today, there are 2 more local bills that are in our hands at the moment, and 3 bi-county bills that have not crossed over from Prince George's County yet. So that is what is in the drawer at the moment that remains for future agendas. Other announcements, Delegate Wallach.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Charkoudian and I are planning a gathering with the Dem Caucus after Monday's floor session. She had sent an email earlier in the week. We'll send another reminder, but just wanted to put it on everyone's radar. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements for the good of the order?
Metro Washington, thank you, Madam Chair, sorry. Metro
Yes.
Washington area will not have a meeting on Monday in light of the outstanding bills still on the Prince George's County side.
Thank you. And I assume that is the case for the other 2 committees as well. I don't believe they have plans to meet next week either. All right. Thank you, everybody. That is it.